should be streaming, but it isn't. Oh, there it is. Okay. It appears to be working. So I just have to do this little bit of crap, and I'll be with you in a moment. Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully not something else isn't wrong. It's always something. Computers. Hopefully. Alright, so that looks okay. And I just have to pop the chat out. Okay, and should be able to commence with this here project, I believe. Alright, so that's right, that's right. Volume, you can hear me, I assume. Yeah, somebody will let me know. Someday they'll let me know. Anyway, alright, so, alright. So we're going to talk about gravity. The dispar creep, as made another jerky video. So he ignored all of my arguments. So instead of just, accepting that, okay, this is an argument. You have a gravitational body and you're going to do a flyby. And it's just an absolute fact, okay, that it's all going to be about how much time you're in the gravity, okay? The gravity, so the faster you go, the less the gravity is going to bend your trajectory, and the slower you go, the more gravity, because it's 9.8 meters of velocity, extra velocity per second, every second. Every 1 second you get 9.8 meters of velocity. So the more seconds you're in the gravity, the more velocity in this direction you get. And the less seconds you're in the gravity, the less it bends your path. And it's just so factually obvious, undeniable by a rational person, and yet he's going to pretend it's somehow somebody proved otherwise somewhere. And that never happened, and that's just nonsense. Now this also goes for objects flying into a gravitational field. If it already has a gigantic velocity of, say, 20,000 miles an hour and it's going into the Earth, it will only be in significant gravity for a matter of a second at most, some kind of tiny amount of time. So the gravitational addition will be, 20,009 meters per second. It'll add nothing. And this also goes for leaving the Earth. If I leave the Earth quickly, I'll gain a huge amount of distance. If I leave the Earth slowly, okay, the efficiency of my journey will be incredibly bad. Okay, so the slower something moves to get to a certain point, it would have to use much more fuel. So half the speed will mean twice the amount of fuel you're going to use to reach this point. Say if you're going, So if I make you go faster and faster, the faster I get you to this point, the less work against gravity you will do, because the less 9.8 meters per 1 second you will have to overcome. So it's just an absolute fact, lifting something slowly is more energy used than lifting something quickly, because you're defeating less gravity. So it's an absolute fact. It can't be reasonably disputed. It's just an idiot, only an idiot and an obnoxious anti-science lying sack of dirty, smelly, ugly shit, okay, would attempt to argue otherwise, because it can't be argued otherwise. So leave us play this moronic pile of shit video by this obnoxious lying sack of shit. Okay, so let's see. I hope the volume's okay. Well, we'll find out. They never tested it. So this misunderstanding of gravity. So he just quote mines my video. So it's too much trouble for somebody to play my argument that I just did and explain where I said something in that drawing that was incorrect. That they can't do. So they just quote my little chunks and say, there, this is my response. So he's not going to respond to my argument at all. He's going to try to change the subject. But he can't really do that. It has something to do with distance. And again, I've made the argument. I mean, how can anybody counter the argument?
How can anybody counter the argument? In every single video, you fucking complain that people need to counter your argument. But at the same time, you automatically assume it's impossible to...
I don't assume it. I'm saying it's impossible, because I've heard physicists describe this very thing, and there's no physicist that's going to defend your argument. No physicist that has any reputation to maintain, because it's an absolute fact that it's a time-dependent force. It's an absolute fact that you gain 9.8 meters of extra velocity per a unit of 1 second. Not a unit of a half second, not a unit of 4 seconds, a unit of 1 second. And it's just an absolute fact.
Counter your argument.
See, this was the Earth, and you're a thing, and you're going to fly by the Earth. You're going to travel this distance in the gravity. The substantial gravity is this little bit here. And so you go really, really fast. You know that, oh, yeah, you don't get bent at all because you're only in this gravity for a millisecond. And then you go really, really slow, and you know, well, yeah, no, I don't.
Yeah, and so I've used the paint sprayer analogy. Gravity's nothing different than a constant amount of paint being sprayed by a paint sprayer. You go through the paint quickly, very little paint on you. You go through it slowly, a ton of paint gets on you. It's an unrefutable argument that gravity does exactly that. There's just no way to refute it and be rational.
I'm crash right into the Earth because I'm in the gravity and I get 9.8 per second, 9.8 per second, 9.8 per second, so I get pushed into the Earth. I mean, it's just so obvious it's about time. It's not about the stupid distance. It's about how long you're in the gravity, not what distance you're traveling.
I was going to use a counter-argument using mathematics, but since you're mathematically retarded, I'm going to...
Oh, yeah, so they're like, again, like somehow their mathematics is somehow rational when it's completely irrational. They're saying MGH. Okay, so they're saying how high something is matters when, well, we know the height is just a distance, so it should be MGD if you're going to do it anyway. Why would you play with some notion of height when it's just a distance it's going to fall? I can put on a podium. I can do all kinds of different things. What does this height thing have to do with it? Height doesn't mean anything. It's just the distance it's going to travel. And Galileo demonstrated that distance, it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, okay, odd numbers, and then the square of the odd numbers. So it's just so frickin' this science is already well overcooked. It doesn't need you to stir it into mush.
spare you from that. Here is simple counter-argument using words and a couple of numbers.
Oh, yes, and just use a completely different analogy where the gravity is constantly changing, okay, and so there's just no consistency to the amount of gravity the object is going to go experience. So, yes, use an example that's completely different.
If a spacecraft zips past Earth
So he's using an asteroid to describe Earth. Okay, clever. But anyway, obviously we know that these uneven orbits, okay, are even in the sense that, Feynman will tell you, equal areas are swept in equal times. And so the very fast object in 1 second sweeps a gigantic area, and the very slow one sweeps a very tiny area. And so we know it's really, it all balances out. And it's clearly illustrating my very point, that when it's in the strong gravity, it has to go incredibly fast to maintain the orbit. When it's in the weak gravity, it has to go incredibly slow to maintain the same orbit. So it's proving my point. It's not disproving it, you retard.
fast, gravity pulls for only a brief time, so the sideways velocity barely changes.
So this is idiotic, that it's only a brief time when it's close, and now he's talking as if it's, it's now far away, and he's talking as if it's close.
If it crawls past slowly, Earth has more time to bend the path.
So Earth has more time to bend the path. So again, the trajectory is the whole problem. Obviously, it's not an even trajectory. It's not going into the object in either a straight line this way or a straight line this way or any vector. It's going in at an obtuse angle. So the gravity is constantly changing. So again, bullshit. And again, it proves my point because obviously the object has to go faster. It will go faster just because it's been pulled towards the object for a longer amount of time over space. I mean, this is a curved line because the gravity is reflecting the fact that the gravity is getting stronger as the object moves closer. You're just it's such a lie to sit there and pretend that this illustrates anything different than what I exactly stated.
Now, that's a force and time effect on momentum, not
a force and time effect on momentum. It's not about the momentum of the object. We're talking about how much the gravity bends its path. I mean, obviously the fact is that the momentum does change. We're not talking about momentum.
extra gravitational energy. Energy gained, or path bent, still comes from the integrated force over the distance traveled in Earth.
So again, it's just a lie. Show me where the distance has anything to do with this argument. So again, just absolute bullshit. There's no description of any distances here. What distance are you talking about, shit for brain?
Field. Gravity provides a constant downward force.
So it's not constant. It's a completely different force when it's really close to the asteroid. It's really a much weaker force further out. That's an absolute fact. So he's implying that it's the same force no matter how close it is or how far away it is. Everybody knows that it's not 9.8 meters forever. So again, just horseshit. Horseshit argument.
The work, the energy transferred, is that force multiplied by how far the object moves in the direction of the force.
So wait, where is it moving in the direction of the force here? It's constantly being bent different amounts because it's moving different velocities. So how is this any kind of reasonable way to illustrate your point? Your point, the argument you're making is somehow when you travel past the gravitational body that somehow it doesn't matter how fast you go, you'll be pushed the same amount. That's an idiotic and ludicrous proposition. It can't and it isn't true.
That's why the correct potential energy change is m.
There's no more baby talk about potential energy. This isn't about potential energy change. The argument was how much is it bent by the gravity? How much does gravity influence a body? And the fact is it's about how much time you're in the gravity. It takes more work to lift this slowly than it would if I launched it quickly. Over the same amount of distance, I'll use less fuel. I'll have expended less energy because I actually fought less force. Absolute fact.
GH, not MGT. You're right.
MGT always works, MGH doesn't always work. It only works in one specific example, and you didn't even show any distances in your example, so you didn't do a damn thing to prove your point.
To say that short time equals less bending, but that's called impulse, which is force times time.
So again, this is nothing about the momentum of the object had anything to do or the weight of the object. We know that an atom and the moon will behave exactly the same way in gravity. We're not talking about momentum. We're strictly talking about is how much does the force bend the object's path, and that's it. And it bends it based on time in the force, period. If I cross a stream, all right, what's going to decide how far downstream I go? How quickly I go across the stream? The distance is the same. I'm just going this distance. I'm going this distance. Which one's going to decide how far I go down the stream? Well, if I go really slowly across the stream, obviously I'm going to get pushed way downstream. I go quickly, I'm barely going to be pushed downstream. That's the absolute fact. That's what gravity absolutely does. And you're just a pitiful liar to sit there and try to pretend there's some counter argument. There is no viable counter argument. That's exactly how gravity works. Leonard Susskind teaches it that way. That's the way it works. It duplicates mock gravity perfectly. You're just such a pathetic liar.
Time, and that is changing the momentum. But that does not mean gravity is about time for energy.
So again, nothing in my example had a damn thing to do with how much energy the object ends up having. And clearly the energy of the object would increase if it falls into the earth and crashes. Okay, it's going to have an added velocity. It not only has this velocity, but it has the added velocity tangentially, so there's going to be a hypotenuse of a higher velocity. So obviously it's gained more energy because it crashed into the fucking earth. Yes, the less it's bent, the less added energy is added to the object, and it just maintains its original velocity. Fact. God, you're such a liar.
Energy transfer depends on how far the force moves the object in the force direction. In the flyby example, the ship moves in and out of the potential well, so the net energy...
So we know it moves in and out. It's in the well all the time. It's just in a strong part and then a weak part. And again, the fact is it's going really fast when it's in the strong part, and it's going really slow when it's in the weak part, perfectly illustrating my point that it needs to stay in the gravity longer to maintain the orbit when it's further away, and it needs to have a much higher velocity when it's close to stay in the orbit to get the same bending. The same bending will require a different amount of time, and that's clearly illustrated. It spends a lot of time out here, and it spends very little time in here. You pathetic liar. well, okay, a lot of time out here. I have to do it on the right one, and very little time in here. This is like I said, if you made a pie chart here, you'd have this gigantic piece of pie on this side would equal a little sliver of pie on that side. That's the absolute truth. Okay, that's what Feynman and all the other physicists, Galileo, all figured out, is that's what happens when you have a parabola as an orbit. Equal times and equal volumes, equal areas in equal times. That's what's stated, equal areas in equal times.
Energy change relative to the planet cancels out unless you take energy from or give energy to another body.
So just horse shit that anything cancels out, but whatever. So what's this horse shit?
Gravity is a conservative force. For a spacecraft that comes from far away and returns far away, the network done by gravity over the entire trip, inbound to outbound, is zero.
Right, and it won't be in an orbit that way. You can't get into an orbit that way. So why don't you include that little fact? That you can't just fly into a gravitational field from the external universe and fall into an orbit. You can't do it. So you either crash or you fly back out again. Now, none of my arguments said anything about gravity not being a conservative force, so what's this trivial nonsense in the video for? I'm the one arguing that, yes, of course it is conservative in the sense that if you go in and go and leave again. But we know that most objects, or an awful lot of the objects, don't do that.
The ship speeds up as it falls in, KE arrow up, then slows down as it climbs out, KE arrow down. The net kinetic energy is unchanged.
So he didn't argue anything in my video. Let's just understand that my simple argument is that you'll never disprove that it doesn't work exactly like paint spray. It doesn't work exactly like a stream. That all that you're really saying is how many units of force were you exposed to? How many timed units of force were you exposed to will decide how bent your path is. That's the absolute fact, and he's doing nothing to talk about that absolute fact. This lying little scummy pile of shit.
So although
Okay, he has another video on, just to point it out, he has another video on the ballistic pendulum. And he's going to argue that, okay, all the videos on YouTube are bullshit, and you have to go read papers. So he has a couple of papers listed in the description, but the links are all broken. So, moron, how about providing links that I can actually open so I can see what the fuck you're talking about? I haven't even played your video because, frankly, as soon as you said there was papers, I wanted to see what the papers were, but I can't see what the papers are because your links are broken, jackass. And it's sort of amazing that all his commenters didn't even bother to see if the links worked. None of them went to the damn video, the links of these brilliant papers that are somehow going to prove that ballistic pendulums are completely different than all the videos on YouTube.
Gravity temporarily converts kinetic to potential energy during the pass. There is no permanent...
So again, this is just a complete waste of time. There was no argument about how much momentum or kinetic energy the object moving has. The only argument is how much is it moved by the gravity. So where are you talking about how much it's moved by the gravity? Oh yeah, nowhere in this video. This is just nonsense.
Gain of kinetic energy for the spacecraft relative.
So there's no kinetic energy, and again, you can argue that one. Why don't you just play the clip where I'm talking about having 3 springs with 3 balls on them, and you're in the middle of space and you shoot 1 spring and you get 1 unit of velocity, and you shoot 2 springs and you get 2 units of velocity, and you shoot 3 springs and you get 3 units of velocity. So I have quadrupled my velocity, but I didn't obey the kinetic energy law, and I didn't use 9 times the energy to go 3 times as fast. So why don't you explain, using that example, how that example isn't relevant, or somehow it doesn't have anything to do with physics, when it absolutely proves there's no need for any notion that it takes 9 times the fuel to make something go 3 times as fast. It obviously does not. So you can keep saying kinetic energy as if it's a real thing, but it's not. All there is the momentum. Oh, you people are just such liars.
To the planet. Only a change of direction momentum in most cases. Here is a step-by-step...
So who the fuck is going to read that little shit anyway? What's the point of it? But we know it doesn't have anything to do with the subject. Gravity is a time-dependent force. It's overtly stated in the formula. 9.8 meters per second of added velocity per 1 second. That's the formula. That's what Newton said.
Step explanation. Fast pass. Quick flyby. Start far away. The ship is cruising at 10 speed units toward the planet. Approach. Gravity starts pulling it inward. As it falls deeper into the gravity valley, it speeds up. Closest approach.
Okay, so instead of just drawing this, he's doing this talking it when it's so simple to draw. So why didn't he just draw it? So this is the the object from space that already has a velocity. And it says, damn, my voice today. Might be better. I should cover the mic. Try to. All right, so you have the gravitational body, and let's just say there's a meteor 10 million light years away, and it finally is getting close to the Earth. Okay, and so it's going to be a direct hit. It doesn't even have to be bent. All right, and it's going 20,000 miles an hour. And it's going to be his argument that this gravity, like the strong gravity, we'll just say is, we'll give it 10 miles worth of gravity is the strong gravity. We could say 100 miles even. And the argument is that velocity is going to go through that in a matter of maybe 2 seconds. That's how fast it's going fast enough that it's not going to be in the gravity more than 2 seconds. He's arguing it's going to get the same amount of gravity no matter how fast it goes. Obviously, no, it isn't. The faster it goes through the gravity, the less gravity is going to affect it. It's going to gain less velocity. It's not going to lose any of its velocity, but it's not going to gain anything. It's going to hit the Earth going to 20,018. Okay? It's not going to gain any significant velocity. Fact.
At the deepest part of the valley, it is going very fast. Say 30 speed units.
So it isn't. So it's just an absolute fact that it's not in the gravity long enough to do any of that. So you're pretending you have some huge, giant guy, enormous distance. Well, you can't use enormous distances because the further away you are, by the inverse square law, the gravity is getting weaker and weaker. So there's no way you could collect all of that. All the significant acceleration happens when you're getting close to the Earth. The further away you are, the amount of acceleration is tiny. I mean, the moon is only pushed down like through its whole orbit 6 inches or something. Tiny amount.
While it's falling in, gravity has done positive work on the ship. That is, it has given the ship kinetic energy.
All right, so he's still talking about kinetic energy. Doesn't have anything to do with it. There's no evidence that it got anything more than 18 meters per second of extra velocity, and that's all it got. A tiny, 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 insignificant amount of extra velocity.
Past the turning point, the ship now heads back out of the...
Look, you can understand this. So I went up to, in a balloon, and I shot a bullet into the ground. Right? So I'm 2 miles up in a balloon. I shoot a bullet straight down. You could understand the bullet will gain nothing from gravity because it's going to take about a second for the bullet to hit the ground.
Valley. Gravity is still pulling inward, but the ship is moving outward. So gravity now opposes the motion.
Yeah, so now he's talking about something going right through the planet or something, but regardless, okay, it has nothing to do with the example provided. Nothing. I mean, if you really had to, just to make sure he wasn't going to screw up some kind of simple example, you could just make the object that's gravitational square. And it would just be just as good. So it's a square object, and you're just going to travel this distance across its effect. And it's the same for a magnet. So if I just made this a magnet, and I said you're going to travel through the magnetic field, what's going to matter? How fast you go through the magnetic field, or this distance? Is this distance always going to be the same amount of influence no matter how fast I move the electron or whatever I'm moving through the magnetic field? No, it's obvious that the slower it's going, the more it's going to be affected, more it's going to be bent by the magnetic field in either direction. And the slower it's going, the more it's going to be bent. So he's just such a liar. Ugh, it's disgusting to play these videos.
And does negative work. Takes energy away from the ship. Far away again. After climbing...
So again, his argument is it's the same work. No matter how fast you lift something, you're doing the same amount of work. It's the same amount of work to lift it really incredibly slowly as it is to lift it very quickly. Absolutely idiotic.
Climbing out, its speed is back to 10 speed units, the same it started with. The energy gained falling in was exactly returned.
So again, this has nothing to do with bending something in gravity. He's talking about how, I'm talking about how much bent downstream that the thing is, and he's talking about, well, how much energy does it have when it hits the opposite shore? Well, yeah, if it's been pushed by the stream for quite a while, it's going to hit the shore with more energy than the one that went just straight across. Because I'm not changing the velocity this way, I'm just changing the velocity that way. But that has nothing to do with the argument here. Absolutely nothing.
Climbing out. Net result? Quick trip, big temporary speed change, but no permanent energy gain from the planet.
So nothing to do with the argument. Nothing in my argument of gravity had anything to do with how much momentum the object collides with something with. That wasn't part of the argument, and I wouldn't have argued that, oh yes, you can take something going a velocity, change its velocity, and not add to its momentum. Of course you can.
Slow pass, lingering flyby. Start far away. Same initial speed. 10 speed units. Approach slowly. Because it moves slowly near the planet, gravity pulls on it for a longer time. It still speeds up as it falls in.
A longer time because it has less energy. It's providing less momentum because it's not 9.8 meters per second. It's, whatever, 0.04 meters per second.
Closest approach, it reaches some peak speed while near the planet. For example, 20 speed units. The ship picked up kinetic energy while falling in. Gravity did positive work.
All right, so we know that depending on its velocity, the amount of kinetic energy it's going to collect is going to be vastly different. So again, if it goes through the gravity fast, it's going to collect almost nothing from the gravity. If it goes through the gravity slowly, it's going to collect a lot of energy from the gravity. Duh.
Climb out.
I've said nothing inconsistent with that fact.
As it leaves, gravity now resists the outward motion and does negative work.
So he hasn't done the clear example given in my own video where I said, well, the bullet example, shooting something with a pre-existing velocity. They can't use MGH in that example, and they'll tell you they can't. The only place they can use MGH is with some object that didn't have a pre-existing velocity. They have to take an object, put it up, and then drop it. They can't have an object that's already moving and use MGH, which is the definition of why the formula is crap. MGT always works. MGH only works in their special contrived circumstance.
Taking that kinetic energy back. Far away again, back to 10 speed units. Exactly what it had before. The extra speed it had near the planet.
So he's doing nothing here. So just to illustrate the point, he's done 3 examples that are all the same example. And all he's saying is he's doing this nonsense. He's saying you can have something go into a gravitational field at some angle, all right, and that it's going to end up getting bent and leave. And that its velocity will change during that bending process. Its velocity will increase because obviously it's being added this extra vector. So it went from, say, this vector to this vector. And so, yes, it has a little bit of extra velocity. So it's just like you shooting something vertically off a cliff, and it goes and it hits a wall. Well, if I allow gravity to add some energy, it's going to hit this ground with more mv than it hit this, because it obviously has 2 velocities. It has this velocity and it has this velocity. And those 2 velocities have a vector. So that's a little higher than the original momentum. Oh, you can't quite see all that. It doesn't matter. He's just not using anything relevant to the example I provided, and he keeps talking about how much energy the thing has rather than talking about how much it's bent.
It was temporary. Net result, long time in the gravity field produced a bigger bending effect. more change of direction.
Okay, there's no evidence of that, so more crap, just keep talking crap, okay? When you're in weaker gravity, you're not going to get bent more, so that's just bullshit.
But no net energy change from the planet. Quick, plain language explanation of why they end the same. While you're falling in, gravity gives energy to the ship.
So this is just has nothing, there's no disagreement here. I would draw it exactly the same way he's explaining that. There's no contradiction here. The only thing there's a contradiction about is whether you're going to measure this distance or whether you're going to recognize that it's about how long it travels that distance, how much time it takes. The faster it travels that distance, the less gravitational bending. The slower it travels that distance, the more gravitational bending, because it will be affected by more gravity, because gravity is 9.8 meters per second of increased velocity per 1 second.
Ship. Speed up. While you're climbing out.
If you're only in it for a half a second, you obviously aren't getting 9.8 anymore. You're only getting 4.9. I mean, duh.
Gravity takes back the same energy. Slow down. That in and out cancels unless something else is involved. Spending more time near the planet changes how much the direction, momentum, is altered. But
So again, was there anything too complicated about the drawing? He can't do the drawing for some reason. He has to do this gibberish, okay, where you have to do the drawing for yourself. So he couldn't draw a simple example, okay, and just say, yes, okay, I have a counter argument for this argument, that you're going to travel this distance through a gravitational or magnetic or electrical field. You're going to travel a distance through it. And the absolute fact is that, why don't you explain how the absolute fact isn't that the only thing that matters is how fast you go across. The faster you go across, the less you get bent. The slower you go across, the more you're bent. So go ahead and unprove that absolute fact, because that's exactly how gravity works. It doesn't work any different than photons, wind, water, paint spray. It doesn't behave any different than magnetism or electricity or any other force known in the universe. It's time dependent, absolutely without any doubt, proven beyond all reasonable doubt, and only a disgusting propagandist for religious crap would sit there and try to make a video saying this isn't true. That this doesn't hold for magnets, that this doesn't hold for paint spray, that this doesn't hold for a stream, that this doesn't hold for wind, that this truth doesn't hold. It always holds for everything.
Does not create permanent extra energy. The in-out energy exchanges balance. And as always, Gary will remain absolutely unconvinced.
Yeah, why would I be convinced by an argument that isn't even on the subject, and you couldn't even draw something this simple? You evaded the subject entirely. And then you say, well, Gary's not going to be satisfied. Yeah, I'm not going to be satisfied because you're an irrational, cheap shot piece of hunk of garbage. I mean, he could have shown us the even better example. Let me just get rid of this horseshit piece of crap. That he showed on the screen at the time, where I was just pointing out how gravity actually works when something's falling. Okay, and the fact is if something falls 1 unit of distance, goes one, and let's just say it's 1 second worth, all right, and something else is going to fall 4 seconds worth, all right. So these are the lines for distance. Not quite. Okay, gotta make this one a little longer. Yeah. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. All right. So this one's going 9.8 when it hits the ground, because it's 1 second of time. This is going to be exactly the same thing, because obviously it's exactly the same starting position. 1 unit of time, 1 unit of 1 second here. Okay. 9.8 is achieved. It only travels 4.9, but you don't need to bother with that right now. And clearly, when it hits, it's only going to be 19.6. So this clearly is only, and if we just measure the time, this is going to be 1 second. So this whole distance will be 1 second also. So it'll only be in the gravity 2 seconds. It's only going to have 2 units of velocity. And so he's saying somehow it has 4 units of energy. But so somehow it got 4 times the energy because distance matters. when obviously this whole section right here was just created by the 9.8. Once I achieve the 9.8, I get this for free. The only thing gravity added was this. This is the only thing the 1 second new added was this 4.8 meters, and this added 9.8 meters. But this was all for free. This didn't take any work. You didn't get any, the gravity didn't do this because gravity already created that when it created the 9.8 velocity. It's just so damn obvious that you can't make 4 units of energy by dropping something twice as long in gravity. It can't make 4 units of energy. It's a ridiculous proposition. But he evaded that argument. Alright, so that's one of his videos. So, yeah. So again, what's the point, right? I mean, it would be really nice if you could engage with people and they took physics seriously. And so you draw pictures, they draw pictures, they explain where you made a mistake. Somewhere in here, I made a mistake. It isn't true that a magnetic field, the faster I go through it, the less it bends me. You know, make the argument. But they don't do that. Instead, he just takes this, he changes the subject entirely to some argument about how much momentum, a bent argument, something getting pushed by the stream, that it gains more momentum if it gets pushed more. Well, of course it gains more momentum. Because it's got 2 things working on it. It's got its original velocity plus the velocity being added by the stream. So now it has 2 velocities. Duh. Alright, so let's see if we can find this stinking, lousy, crappy pop-out chat. Let's see if there's anything worth paying any attention to. Yeah, so I might not have to stay here long. I just figured I'd do a daylight one just to see if it makes any difference at all. And it probably won't. So where's the pop-up window? I don't see it here. Huh, that's strange. Oh, that's probably this little piece of crap. Alright, so we got something here. Let's see, dark endless. Gravity is a constant force. That's why we try. That's why we get tired when we sit too long in one place. Well, I mean, it's just saying, you get tired because that's obviously the constant force is jiggling you back and forth, which is, that's the unpleasant part. Gravity moves you, you don't feel it, but when the earth pushes you back up, you feel it. It should be obvious that it should be seen as a constant stream. The fact is it behaves exactly if. So again, I don't want to keep arguing the point, but Leonard Susskind, the biggest relativity defender on Earth, teaches relativity by using mock gravity, by just saying you have a constant stream heading for a tiny center of an object. So you have a waterfall, creates a constant pressure of water, and it goes down a drain. It's exactly the same mechanism, and it's exactly creates the same circumstance that it's just about how much time you're in that damn stream is going to decide how much it's going to move you. All right, how do physicists not even... No, they do understand, okay? Physicists aren't the problem. We don't have any physicists in this discussion. So if we could drag one into the discussion, they would have to admit. Do you think that a physicist is really going to defend that there's no law of the lever? That somehow for 2,000 years people were fooled? No, they're not going to be able to do that. Understand the sheet of ice argument. Well, I think physicists do understand it, frankly. Again, if you propose the argument to them and you say, well, obviously I'm changing something when I go across thin ice quickly. What am I changing? Well, I'm changing the pounds per square inch. I'm obviously not going to apply the same amount of weight per unit of ice. Every unit of ice will now have less weight on it because I traveled across it quickly. Duh. All right, the faster you move across the ice, the less weight is on the ice. The slower you move, the longer the gravity has to... Right, it's, you know. So now, obviously, if there was like a thin patch that was very, very big, you know, speed might not help you any because overall the weight is going to be on the 2 ends and they would give in. You know, so there's ways you could contrive an argument where you can't get across the thin ice, but the fact is, in most cases, yes. If you want to go across thin ice, the faster you go, the more thin ice you can go across. All right, paint spray argument isn't hard to understand. Scary how dishonest physicists are. These aren't physicists, these are assholes. Again, the whole problem is if physicists had to deal with these real questions, they would pause and say, shit, I don't have a good answer to that. We saw that with physicist Michael, didn't we? He just bailed out of the conversation because the fact is he knew he can't win these arguments because his arguments are going to suck. He tried to use relativity to say, that to try to evade the argument about this whole speed argument, and pretending that rockets or some other thing are, because of relativity, that somehow you can break the rules. But he knew it was a shit argument. He even said it after he made the argument. He said, "Well, it's a tiny difference and it's not going to apply." Let's see. Oh, what's the matter today, sir? Well, fuck you. Useless drivel from drivelites. If you're a drivelite, just go somewhere else, okay? This is a no drivelite zone. Gravity is a pull mechanism on its face. Well, that's just baby talk. Thank you. Gravity as a pull mechanism on its face can't be rationally explained. Okay, sorry. Correct. Pulls can't be explained. I'm just saying that we already know this. This is the, again, if you pose it to a physicist and say, well, can you show me a real pull? Okay, in any kind of physical sized universe. Well, there's not going to be one. And then when you start talking about the small universe, it's just as easy to say, well, don't you understand how simple it is? When something hits something, that's push. So every time there's a collision, we have push. Now, can you explain what pull would be? All right. Push happens all over the place. Was this established pre-Torricelli? What are you talking about? Scary to be alive. You're scaring me right now, frankly. I really want to see a physicist interact with you, but unfortunately they are cowards. Yes, that's the truth of it. It's just sad that of all these, there had to be a few random people that had physics degrees that popped in and out of this channel now and then. And it just sucks that not one of them can make a video, not one of them can make an argument. Somehow if I was a flat earther, they'd all show up at my door. But how come they're not showing up at my door? Right? Because I don't have arguments that are easy to defeat. They're damn good fucking arguments. Stupid physics, stupid life. Well, that's not very useful either. What is that? Jesus. If there's a subject, I'm talking about gravity specifically, could you maybe think a little bit and say something a little connected to gravity? Even if you just said stupid gravity, stupid life. Be a little bit on the subject. Just a little bit. To be honest, yeah, you're right. I was wrong about you. I'm sorry. Well, I don't know what that exactly means, but fine. I accept apologies. I like them. Yeah. So I guess I'll put the chat in the window just because I can. So I will. I believe I can. Yes, I can. All right. But it's not terribly useful. See if somebody says something on the subject, and I can draw it because they have a question or something. To be honest, yeah, you're right. Okay. Do you think physics is more complex than biology and chemistry? It's a stupid question. Sorry, the Ephelist. Put a line through it or something. Anyway, obviously I'm saying it's so damn simple. There's two kinds of force, there's two kinds of matter, electrons and protons, and there's three interactions. That's all of physics. The entire subject of physics is right there because that describes every single interaction that actually happens in the real universe. Because the real universe really is just electrons and protons. And if you think a little bit about it, you can figure that out for yourself. That the only way you do something is because your electrons and protons have to do it. Yes, they're disguised in atoms and chemicals and different things, but frankly, it's just the electrons and protons in the end that have to do the moving. And you can understand that, yes, if they don't move, you don't move. So obviously physics is insanely simple compared to the complexity of all kinds of different chemicals and shapes and masses and goopiness and hardness and all kinds of mixtures and little rocks with all kinds of different minerals in them. That's very complicated compared to physics. Have you talked with Professor Dave? Well, like I said, I've already described the brief interaction I had in his comments section, essentially, and he basically said if I pay him $10,000, he'll address my arguments. But I have to pay him $10,000, more than I offered Veritasium. So yeah, why would I pay that asshole? And frankly, considering the way he makes videos, it's almost like Professor Dave's channel is not a great place to put a video because you don't know what you're going to get in view numbers depending on how he titles it or what kind of clickbait icon he uses. So, if he titles it something to do with flat Earth, he gets 200,000 views. If he titles it to do something about some kind of worm, well, then he gets 10. Yeah. Basically, it's the work of electrons and other subatomic particles. Well, there's only two, electrons and protons, but okay, pretend there's others. Just the matter of fact that it has been represented pretty wrong. Well, whatever, that's not a great sentence, but okay, it's good enough. Obviously, it's not that they haven't represented it, they have no clue. They have no clue. They think the universe is made out of little jellyfish at the core, little and strings and all kinds of wacky theories about wave. It's doing this wavy thing and it doesn't know where it is and it doesn't decide to where it goes and it doesn't know what it's doing and blah, 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 blah. I mean, they don't have any idea. They can't provide any mechanism to tell you why electrons repel each other and why protons attract each other. They have no mechanism at all. Nothing. And I've perfectly already simulated. I have a simulation that actually shows the process of 2 plus 2 plus 3 perfectly duplicating the interaction between electrons and protons. Couldn't be a simpler theory. And so, yes, it's got 9,000 million Occam razor points. And the fact is it works. So not only is it insanely simple, it works insanely well. I mean, yeah. It's on the website, so if anyone's curious, there's a video called Charge 2 plus 2 plus 3 Physics. Watch that video, and it'll show diagram just how simple it is to create a simple mechanism that creates charge. Okay, I like okays too. Apologies and okays are okay. Yeah, okays are okay. All right. If relativity is wrong, yeah. Well, I'm just saying it's of course just a statement made that is ambiguous because it only works in insane circumstances where something's going near the speed of light. So that's the first, big X against it. You're not going to have any practical evidence that it's real. How do you account for the observed bending of light around the sun? Where was that observed? So the Eddington experiment, in Eddington's journal, he said, I got 10% of the data quality. That is, he thought he was going to get 10,000 stars per slide. He got 1,000. An insane degrade. It rained 5 minutes before the experiment. I mean, you're going to keep saying that you have proof of this bending. Why hasn't NASA done the experiment from space? We've been in space 50 years with decent cameras. Why haven't they done the Eddington experiment from space? You don't need an eclipse, and there's 400 times better resolution. Not 4, not 40, 400 times better resolution. So where was it confirmed? Confirmed during solar eclipses. Where was it confirmed? Go show me the evidence. Do they ever do that? Do they ever actually show you this huge difference? Oh, look at no, they don't show you shit. And there's all kinds of, look, if you looked into it just a tiny bit, you'd find out that there's slides that are missing, that were, destroyed, frankly, because they didn't agree with the conclusion. But just go with the remarks in Eddington's own journal. If a man says in his own journal, I wouldn't stake my life on these results, why would you write a New York Times headline saying Einstein proven right? You have to concede that that's pretty shaky science, right? If a guy writes in his own journal about the experiment, I wouldn't trust my life on these results, would a good scientist say, well, then maybe we shouldn't write New York Times headlines about this experiment? Can you be that honest? Even philosophy says if you have a simple complication and a complex explanation, take the first. Well, I don't care whether they say that. Electrons and protons, I mean, it's not just about being simple. It's about also the damn thing working. And that's the first step, is to have it actually work. Like the Einstein is a good example, right? They keep saying they have evidence of this bending shit, and their evidence sucks. A NASA engineer pointed out that, who worked with NASA in lasers for 10 years, that NASA has absolutely no evidence of any bending outside the lamb of the sun. That at that distance, nothing is bent. Okay, it has been confirmed many times since with radio waves. Well, radio waves are scattered, you moron. So obviously scatter goes to every location. So it wouldn't matter where I was, I would see some of the radio waves go there, because that's what happens when you scatter. Okay, so we're talking about an image reproduction. Okay, the Eddington experiment is a specific experiment where you're saying the light is preserved. The image inside the light photons is preserved. That a radio telescope cannot do. And obviously there's a ton of particles coming off of the sun, so any idiot could figure the plasma gets all the way to the fucking Earth. Plasma from the sun reaches the fucking Earth, you moron. So how the fuck, if you're doing an experiment and you're shooting your radio waves through a bunch of particles, you can't figure out that you're scattering them? Duh! Oh, fuck. You people are just so bad at science. But you're bad because they talk with such confidence. These fucking asshole physicists talk as if they've proven something when they haven't proven shit. Just think about the fucking fact that they call it a double slit experiment when they shoot electrons at a crystal. No slits at all. They're shooting it at a matrix of atoms. There's no slits, and they call it a double slit experiment. Just think about that for a minute. If they're willing to so distort and lie, they do another experiment called Stern-Gerlach, where they shoot silver atoms at a target, and then they claim they're measuring the magnetic moment of the electron. I mean, it's a preposterous statement. All right, you're just so full of shit. Okay, are the modern scientists smoking? Well, I don't care about this kind of rhetoric. Why aren't they teaching these simple things to all and giving bonehead forms? What's the use of that comment? I don't know. Are the modern scientists smoking? Are they smoking? I don't know what that means. Yeah, fuck you. Yeah, that's just, you're more and more irrelevant. Okay, shocking. The Eddington experiment hasn't been redone. And it's just a fact. Every effort to redo it was always fucked up. Like the eclipse was too low in the horizon. It rained. Something else went wrong. So they've never done anything that goes outside the margin of error. So they can keep claiming they've done it, but we are never going to show you a picture of what they did. They had some amateur do it, and if you look at his goddamn data, it's all pixelated. I mean, it's gigantic pixels. I mean, no way you could do this experiment with that crap fucking data. And again, the simple question is, why hasn't NASA done it? It's a simple experiment. They could do it with Jupiter, for fuck's sake, and they haven't even tried. The James Webb Telescope has captured spectacular images of distorted light from massive galaxies and clusters. What do you make of it? Well, go look at them and then try to figure out the mathematics of them. Gravity tends to be incredibly spherical, okay? So you're going to have to explain how it's curved over here this much and then it bends this much over there and it's all distorted and broken. And the very idea, again, Einstein made it clear, you can't see Einstein rings because there's not enough photons in the right amount of gravity. Gravity is the exact opposite of a magnifying lens. Gravity bends more towards the middle and less towards the outside. So obviously it's not going to work as a magnifying lens. So keep believing this bullshit. That's your prerogative. I'm saying it's very thin, crappy evidence. And again, you could see it with those lensed images from space because you can say, well, gravity strong enough to bend light would have to be spherical. And so it would have to be mathematically precise. And those are very mathematically imprecise images. More like what you would expect from a supernova. As a supernova exploded and there were other things in the way, it would bend and crooked. You wouldn't get a perfect circle anymore. And that's what it looks like, is that those images look more like old rings left over from supernovae and such. I don't know if history would have been any different if Eddington didn't show up, because everybody wants to believe in relativity. They want it to be true. That's the problem, is they like wooey physics. They like spooky action. I mean, Einstein was the biggest seller of spooky action. Ironically complains about spooky action, but his own theory is completely spooky action. There's some special bent geodesic that gives objects momentum. Oh, it gives them energy? Yeah, for free? Oh. Well, fuck conservation of energy, right? Okay, how many scientists are the chat? Yeah, that's the whole problem. We're saying, right, okay, that's the whole problem with YouTube. The whole way the world works is nobody's accountable for what they say. I can't force scientists to defend what they say. I can only offer them thousands of dollars to defend what they're saying, but they won't take my fucking money. And that's been demonstrated with over 20 channels that refuse to take my money. I offer them $2,000 or more to merely play a 5-minute video of mine, and they wouldn't do it. Let's see. They might know this, but they don't wanna fucking do it. What does that even mean? I'm just saying, if you're a scientist and you're NASA and you have all these satellites and all these cameras, you know, it wouldn't occur to you to duplicate the Eddington experiment where you can do it for $5. I mean, it's a 5-minute experiment from space. It's just no work at all from space. Human language isn't a scientific language. It's full of shit vocabulary and nonsense. What do you think of Venice Circle? I don't know. And analytic philosophy. Well, fuck all metaphysics. Fuck all that shit. I don't know. You're just talking crap too. I'm not interested in all that jargon you just fucking argued. They're just arguments. You're arguing about what the truth is, okay? It doesn't matter whether I use some fancy word or I use some simple word. The argument is, you know, I could say it's wet or I could say it's damp. You know, it's heavily dampened. Does it make any difference if I say wet or heavily dampened? No, it doesn't make any difference. I'm not believing anything yet. Just want your take. I doesn't just go to the fucking website, okay? All the subjects are there, and I nail every fucking one of them. I've destroyed their physics. It's absolute crap, and I've proven it beyond reasonable person's doubt. Now, reasonable person cannot doubt that I have not provided gigantic question mark regarding the credibility of the statements physics makes. To be honest, yeah, gravity has to be spherical. Nth bent light. I don't know what that means, but anyway, you should debunk it in the media. Well, where's the media? Where's the media? Where do I go to find the media? These morons in the chat just agree with everything you say. Well, fuck you. You're just disagreeing for no damn good reason, right? You're not going to say anything, are you? Yes, you are. Ha, ha, ha. Whatever that means. So, yes, you'll be the first one to go. We don't, you know, your input is irrelevant. You're going to argue about the people arguing. You're not going to make an actual physics argument. Then fuck off. All right. I never agree to anyone but accept what all say and decide, so I'm not a moron, dude. Oh, you can say you're not a moron, but frankly, I'm just saying I've given you all the reason in the world. You want to still believe Eddington's a good experiment? Well, I'm just saying you're not reasonable. You're not a sensible person. The guy says right in his own fucking journal, I wouldn't stake my life on these results. Well, you take it to his own word and you say, fuck this, yeah, let's try again next time. I mean, he points out I got 10% of the data quality. 10% is a gigantic degrade. I mean, I can't even point out how insanely bad the results would be on 10% of the data. Shit. All right. Okay, white man, whatever that is. All right. No, just we need to agree on what words mean before. Well, this isn't the problem here. Agreeing on what words mean is not the problem. They've invented 1/2 mv squared. There's no evidence for it, okay? Nothing does it. And yet they claim it exists. And they've never done the simplest experiment, drop the 1 pound 4 feet and the 4 pounds 1 foot and prove that somehow momentum doesn't matter because one of them has twice as much momentum and somehow that's the same impact energy when it's not the same momentum. So somehow with different momentums, you can create different impact energies. Okay, prove it. And they can't prove it because it doesn't happen ever. Well, he should address his comments to somebody. See, I'm just playing the game here. I'm just saying, you gotta be a little more explicit for me, okay? I'd like you, if you're going to address somebody, that you could just put their name in there and say, okay, that's who I'm addressing. WH colon or something. Some idea that I know you're talking to them, because these little one-shot comments, as if you're having a personal conversation, I'm not clever enough to be able to see that. Yeah, well, I didn't, I'm just saying, fine. You can talk about whoever he wants to talk about. I'm just saying that I can't see that. Are you impersonating Newton? Well, go fuck yourself. Is there some other response to that? Huh? I looked like this before I even knew Newton was relevant, okay? This is how I've always looked. Ugh, fuck. People are just so fucking useless. No doubt a woman, I guess. I'm Surrey, okay? Well, so you can't even spell sorry. I mean, damn it. You're not going to get my point. I don't want to live in a world where culturally everybody decide to have their own personal language. It irritates me. What's the difference between gravitational waving and light waving? There's no waving. There's no such thing as an elemental wave. Bullets can look like a wave, right? I can shoot bullets, bang, 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 and they go out in space, and they have a certain distance from each other, and they'll create you could say it looks like a wave. But even water waves aren't waving. There's little particles of water pushing on each other, okay? There isn't anything waving. What's the difference? Okay, we did that. What is this? Dental matter, you clever already to expose these. What the hell are you saying? Do, okay, doesn't matter, you're clever already to expose these. I don't know, you're just not playing along. You're going to have to say I'm sorry again. Moggs Newton, what does that even mean? I don't know what that means. Oh, fuck you, people suck. Spider-Man is stupid. Let's just be real here. Well, apparently. He can't even spell. I can't spell, but that's not a good enough excuse. This isn't a problem spelling. This is a problem thinking. So obviously he's a drinker or something, right? Why are you not banning every non-scientist in the chat? Well, I would prefer to do that if there were some scientists in the chat. So do you think I wouldn't dispose of these people like in an instant if I actually had somebody who had some credibility in what they said in the chat? Well, of course I would screen it for the most credible people. That's what I want. I want to have the most credible conversation. I don't want to have the most incredible conversation. Jesus, what a pile of shit. As you wish. Doesn't matter to me. Spelling is independent of typing common sense. Well, whatever that crap is also. I'm just saying you have to make yourself understood. I mean, that's the minimum here. You know, you get to look at it before you hit the post button. So, I mean, if you can't read it, then you shouldn't expect me to read it. So, I don't know. I guess there is a point where this Spider-Man guy is just not going to be useful. What is this coal solder storm? What does that mean? What the fuck are you talking about? You just say his name? Oh, okay. For some dumb reason. All right. They sell science, not knowledge. So I don't even know what that means. It's a religion. It's a dogmatic, made-up religion. It doesn't have anything to do with reality. There's not waves going through the double slit experiment, okay? There's no kinetic energy thingy. There's no mv squared thing. Doesn't happen anywhere. Gravity's obviously making the Earth hot. I mean, duh. Let's see. Stop shit trash talking coal. Well, whatever. Compared to you, he knows a lot about science stuff. Oh, Jesus Christ. Why would you even remind me of science jingles? Worse than emoticons is science jingles. Phew. Yeah, it's bad, sorry. I don't know what any of that is, but fine. Blah, 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 blah. There's 18 people, and you'd think that 18 people could do a little better than this. Oh, what do I do for a living? How is that relevant to the physics argument? And is it really any of your business? And should anybody on the internet talk about their personal life in any way? I mean, too ridiculous. I'm 65. Just throwing that in. Let's see, Alex, and you're asking for trouble, buddy. What do you think about Richard Dawkins cowardly praising Jordan Peterson on his God video BS? Cowardly appeasing. Well, I don't know how he appeased him, but so I have no opinion because I lost interest in Richard Dawkins about 7 years ago and really haven't paid much attention to him since. I can't remember exactly what he did, but he did something really dumb. You know. Oh yeah, he was in a conversation and the subject of eating meat came up, and it was just so his response was just so lame and bullshit. You know, as if he can't figure out that, oh yeah, you know, harming things really should suck, so maybe I shouldn't do that. But he couldn't say the words. I mean, you know, you should just admit that he's a selfish cunt. You shouldn't sit there and pretend that, oh yeah, it's not a problem because animal brains aren't anything like our brain. Our brain is special. Their brains are silly. You know, but he couldn't make that as a biological argument. So he's conceding that their brains are doing what our brains are doing. And he basically just said, well, it's okay, torture them. That's just tough shit. I mean, it was so dumb. And it was so obviously just trying to protect his own indulgence. Is there any plan for an email event? Well, it didn't. It hasn't worked. So, but yeah, I don't really have to plan it. It's pretty simple to just say, okay, send this to those guys and see what happens. Is there a way to know how many participants actually sent emails? Well, not really. We could ask one of them. The only guy that got engaged again was what's his name, Yerney, Bruce Yerney. And unfortunately, he hasn't been, he's gone. He's not available at the moment. I haven't got any email responses from him, so maybe he's got some health problems or something else has gone wrong. He basically said he believes in some pseudo-spiritual god, like a metaphorical god, LOL. Yeah, whatever. That's like the Spinozian god or whatever. I'm just saying, it's just, frankly, it's too silly. I mean, he's called religion a delusion, and then he sits there and says there's some part of the delusion that's useful. I mean, what's the point? Selfish gene and meme terms are pretty good discoveries. The selfish gene is, a nice way to put it, and then he basically backslid from that title because, it's too rough on people. And the idea of memes, that there's actually, the fact is that our intelligence grows based on the popularity of ideas, and that they're in competition, that ideas are also in competition. So you could argue that even cultures are in competition. And, they're doing the same kind of evolutionary battle. They're battling for their credibility. He went full Benetard and Carey went back on everything he wrote. Well, I didn't see it, so I doubt that he went back on everything he wrote, but whatever. Let's just understand, he wrote a book called The Greatest Show on Earth. I mean, obviously, the bloodletting is not a great show. The maggots eating some poor animal's brain is not a great show. You ought to speak English here. No offense. Soccer is gay. Okay, so now you've given me good reason to say fuck off. Yeah, we'll do the timeout thing. We'll be generous. But yeah, I should just block him. Not like that the memes which a cultural programming by generation. Well, that's not a good sentence. Not like that the memes which a cultural programming by generation. There's no cultural programming, frankly. It's not like an instinct or something. I mean, people have to adopt the programming. I mean, obviously, I didn't accept 80% of my cultural programming. It's pretty easy to step out of cultural programming. Do you think the environment or the genes? Well, obviously, I think the environment is everything. The genes are almost nothing. Brain is a machine, can be programmed by culture. So again, it can be, but only if the brain is stupid. So only if the brain doesn't learn that there's choices in the world and that it's going to be responsible for the choices it makes. Then the brain is going to be clever and say, well, I'm not going to choose to do something because they say so. I'm going to do something because it's right. Brain is, okay, that's it. Dawkins just have emotional crap about life that makes him say life worked. It just enjoy explosion. Boy, you really can't come close, really. I'm going to have to time you out if you can't. I mean, it's sort of, you're hurting my brain trying to figure out what the fuck you're writing. Even thoughts is constructed by culture, society, so idea memes which make you identity, and genes build your biological identity. Well, I'm saying the genes don't have anything to do with it. You could take a baby from anybody and give it to anybody, and you can make the baby into an asshole, or you can make the baby into a genius, and it's not going to matter. It's not genius by genetics, so just dream on. I think that's just a terrible fable. I mean, obviously it plays a minor role that you have to have a brain that isn't got miswiring in it and a bunch of over emotionalism and all kinds of other crap in it to distract it. And obviously you can have idiot savants where they're really good at something visual, but they suck at anything imagined. So they can't imagine anything except visual images, and they can't imagine anything as a concept. Even though it's constructed, okay, so yeah, I'm just getting sick of your comments. Yeah, that is the point. Yeah, so that's so good. It's done. I don't even think it's a subject, frankly, and it certainly doesn't have a goddamn fucking thing to do with gravity. So this whole Dawkins conversation is, again, just a stupid distraction. I'm not discussing Dawkins. I mean, it's just one of the most important physics concepts there is gravity and understanding it correctly. And none of you people are terribly interested in getting to those nuances or ways of proving it, or you're not like suggesting, well, why don't you give them the example of, and well, why don't you, yeah, because it's just so obvious that yes, it's a time dependent force. It says 9.8 meters per second of added velocity per 1 second. So yeah, how can it not be a time dependent force when it's in 1 second units? Let's see, do you think there's a contradiction in putting so much emphasis on the DNA molecule? Oh, fuck you. Look, the DNA molecule, we've only had 30,000 years of cultural development. And obviously, the DNA molecule didn't change anything. Knowledge changed everything. Education changed everything. So, this is just bullshit. This isn't physics. Okay, well, I just block you now because, Elon Musk isn't the subject either. Oh, fuck. Yeah, I think he's an idiot. I mean, most of his stupid ideas are insane and won't work. And period. And he hasn't really produced anything that you would call him himself. He hasn't produced anything innovative. He hasn't created anything. All he's done is charge the government a huge, gigantic amount of money to burn up rocket engines. I mean, NASA could have wasted the money just as easily. Why did they hire Elon to do it? I mean, why did they subsidize his cars? I mean, there's so many questions you could ask about what the fuck is this poor shit? If you wanted to ask me, do I think Tesla will survive as a car manufacturer? No. "86,000 seconds." It's just funny what YouTube does. You time them out for 24 hours and then they write 86,000 seconds. Yeah. Why did they just write 24 hours? Alright, not much happened in the old comment section, so not much point if there isn't anything on the subject, nothing relevant to deal with, blah, 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 blah. So I'll just get the hell out of here and demonstrate that it doesn't matter what time the room is. It's the same shitty audience. Yeah, can't find a new audience. a better audience, a more informed audience, some kind of something. But nope, can't get anywhere. Let's just be evidence, though. So it'll be part of the story. Is the fact is that you can find the truth, you can discover the cure, and as long as if it's not something somebody can make money off of, it'll remain obscure for decades, because there isn't any mechanism to do anything in terms of organize thoughts and arguments. I mean, there really should be a place to go to debate underlying physics concepts. To point out things like, well, you've never dropped 4 pounds 1 foot and 1 pound 4 feet. You never did that. Why didn't you do that? Well, why didn't you do that Eddington experiment from space? You have all those satellites. Why don't you do it? None of those questions will be answered. Because they can get away with not answering them. Because nobody can hear the people asking them. Yeah, that's it. Disappointing. But everything, yes, everything, every part of life so far I have encountered has been disappointing. It will always turn to shit. That's one of the conservation rules. It all just goes back into shit. Shit cycle. Alright, so I guess I'll get out of here. What kind of, music. See, they really can't come close to anything useful. Useless tripe.